Happy Monday, ladies and gentlemen. We have a different crew with us tonight, and I'm very excited about this particular group of people. We got two J's and an I. We got James and Justin here with us today, and of course, the indomitable Ian Boyd. So, Ian, my question to you straight out the gate is Vanderbilt.
I thought we agreed we were going to discuss my flag football.
Okay. Sorry, guys. I'm sorry. There's a contractual obligation. No, you're right. You're right.
More
I apologize.
important.
Ian, what happened with the team that you're the defensive coordinator for?
Defensive coordinator / head coach.
Sorry.
It's associate head coach in the contract, just so we can get a few more dollars.
Yeah, fair enough. Let me I'm trying to practice my skills as a host here. Ian, you had a very large weekend as a head coach and a defensive coordinator for your flag football team. Can you maybe bring the people up to speed as to what happened?
We're going to the championship. So what's happened?
Oh, wow. Great.
So
that's it. That you didn't want to elaborate.
Come on, we built this up.
Considering he texted, we have to bring this up first. You would expect a little more.
Tell him, James.
Wow. All right.
I wanted some details. How Liam did.
Shout out to Justin for wearing
the
Manning shirt to help the algorithm. Hopefully that'll get in the thumbnail.
There we go.
My son did well. He's the center. He made several great snaps.
You know what? We had
like half snaps in flag.
No, it's got to be between the legs in our league.
Got to be between the legs. Hey, you know what? We had an issue with that earlier in the year because my son also plays in a flag football league, and I told the kid what's the center's name? Owen, Henry. I was like, a great play can only happen with a great snap, and then every great play that you ever see started with a great snap. And so we made it so important that exchange happened because that's half of flag football for 8-year-olds.
Yes, these are 9 and 10. I cannot tell you how many times one of the teams has been like in a high leverage moment. It's like, okay, 4th down and goal. Game on the line, bad snap, whistle, done.
Yeah.
So wait, hold on. Are these kids long snapping or is it just literally under center?
Shotgun.
We use the gun.
Right.
We use the gun. I think the gun is actually easier than the under center. And the blitz, you can't block. The blitzers have to start at depth. So it's helpful to the quarterback. Yeah, it's helpful for the quarterback to see what's coming, I think, and not have to turn his back to the defense.
Yeah.
So
because they don't know, they don't have the steps for that, the muscle memory for that. Everything's shotgun anyway. That's what they're used to. That's what they see in high school games or middle school games when they go watch their family.
We use the gun. We use a 2-robber defense of my invention.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many aside is it, Ian? I'm
5 on 5. 5 on 5.
Okay.
The Ender Dragon plays 2-robber as our base coverage. And we had 3 interceptions and we won the game.
Nice, dude.
That is nice. Like the Texas defense this weekend a little bit.
Absolutely. Segue.
James, that is some top-notch segueing. That's some good YouTubing right there, James. Let's talk about that defense. Let's bring up the question here from our friend Richard McCleary. And he's pointing out that this is mid-season now. We're playing a much longer season. The objective for us at this point is an SEC championship and ultimately that bye. That's what we're playing for. We want the bye in the playoffs. But these are Texas fans. We have a tendency to sometimes get a little bit gloomy in the fall. And I'm just curious here. I would love to hear your boys' perspective on this. Like, talk about what the changes have been over the last 3 years with PK and this defense that has brought us to a level that we haven't seen on the 40 acres in quite some time. We'll start with you, Justin.
Was this the first game of 2024 they gave up over 300 total yards of offense in a game? I believe it was.
Yeah.
We're almost in November, and this defense went that long before giving up 300 yards. In the college football era, where 300 yards happen pretty easily sometimes, usually. You got to give them a lot of credit. You got to give those guys – yeah, there was some bend, don't break, I think, against Vandy. But here's the thing. That team had turned the ball over twice the entire season coming into the game Saturday. They forced 3 turnovers, including 2 interceptions from Diego Pavia, however you say it. He is still one of my favorite quarterbacks. He's still a dude. He still should be a future WWF wrestler. That to me speaks volumes. You know, Anthony Hill, I was talking to a source today or yesterday. They said the box score was wrong. That when they went back and graded the game, Anthony Hill had almost 13 tackles. And it was like, that was active. Leona LaFau playing center field, one of the best coverage linebackers we had seen in high school with a big pick. The Kobe Black, that's a true freshman out there making plays when they were moving Ja'Day Barron around and stuff like that. It's a defensive program. This is a defensive identity team. And if they're going to go to the playoff this year, it's going to be on the backs of the defense. Now, the offense, we're going to talk about that later. But right now, I think the depth is what's sustaining these guys. They don't have to play just 3 or 4 defensive linemen. They play 6. They don't have to play two safeties. They play 4. They're playing more corners now. And plus, I think the linebackers are getting better each week. I think Nansen doesn't get mentioned enough. We see them sometimes miss in run fits, but we also remember these are young guys. And then we don't see them make the same mistake. And I think that's huge, especially for Anthony Hill, who I think is only getting better.
What are you seeing here, James?
I mean, to Justin's point, yeah, being a younger fan, like this is the best I've seen the defense look since the 2000s. And the depth is the key thing there. Is like, look at a guy like Ethan Burke, wasn't necessarily getting as much first team reps in his first half of the season. Then he gets a pass deflection that leads to an INT. And then Kobe Black had the highest rated Pro Football Focus grade on the defense this week, which is crazy. I mean, I remember looking at the depth charts in fall camp and seeing this true freshman was up there pretty high, and he's starting to make an impact because, you know, unfortunately because of some injuries, but, you know, he played well. And I think the key is just the depth, the fact that they can throw so many bodies at people up front. The defense is by far the most complete unit, most consistent unit. And aside from turnovers, like Vandy really wasn't moving the ball that well.
Hey, LC, you know what? Something's missing on our comments. I don't see a bunch of trade Trey Moore. I don't see don't renew Trey Moore's contract. I thought Trey Moore was going to be a guy. I don't see that for some reason on the comments this week. Maybe it's a glitch. I don't know. But I think Trey Moore did some business, and I just wanted to make sure we give that guy some love because he has been that close on sacks all season long. He closed the gap, and now we don't have to read all that ridiculousness about Trey Moore. Hey, he's a ball player. He's been a ball player. He will continue to be.
Yeah, what about the sack, though? No sacks.
Yeah. He'll help with the forcing turnovers. I'll actually take that.
Yeah.
Ian, you wrote an article today or yesterday about why we should be, and this is a little bit of a deviation for you because this was actually a positive take on something. Why should we be positive on this defense, specifically with what you saw with Vanderbilt?
Am I not very positive generally?
No. I mean, you're just, I wouldn't call you Mr. Sunshine.
Oh.
I'm sorry. Are you just coming to this realization? Am I the first person to say this to you?
My mom always told me I was the brightest ray of sunshine in the world.
I apologize if this is coming as news to you.
I'm befuddled. What was your question? Oh, it was about my article.
Yeah,
no, we can give you time to process that. What do you?
I need to see a therapist.
Man, look at the scenery back there, LC, and Ian's little thing. He's got an ambiance going right now. It's darker. This is Boyd dark.
Yeah.
Well, they were using this room. The previous owners is like a movie room. So, and we haven't painted it yet. It's like the upstairs loft of the room.
When you say that, you mean viewing movies, right? Not making them?
Yeah, I hope so.
Okay. All right.
It matters.
It does. There's a distinguishing difference there.
Mm-hmm.
Ian, tell us about the article you wrote.
So Texas played outstanding option defense on Vanderbilt, which it doesn't have to be that complicated. Texas makes it pretty simple. They have simple rules. You don't let the ball go outside. You keep it inside. And then they have to earn it the hard way on your D-line and your linebackers. The thing about an option offense is that it gives the defense the option. Which one do you want to defend? If you know it's coming, you can make the offense choose the path that you want them to choose. Texas takes advantage of that. It seems simple when you watch them do it. Then you watch LSU do it, and they have no idea what they're doing. You watch Alabama versus Vanderbilt. They have no idea what they're doing. And that's very positive. And not only is it very positive, and it avoided a disaster in Nashville, but the next 4 teams Texas plays all run their quarterback with the option from the shotgun.
Right.
All of them. And for most of them, it's a essential cog.
A&M
So
does now.
Yeah. Okay. You have Florida, who's now all in on DJ Lagway. He's going to run the ball a lot. Then you got Arkansas.
Taylon Green.
Gun option, Taylon Green. That's either you stop him and you win or you don't and you lose. Kentucky, Brock Vandegrift. He's running the ball a lot. And then now we just saw this is 9 per game. Sometimes as many as like 15 or 20 if they need it.
I didn't know a dude with the flip phone had those kind of feet.
Well, he's a little more like Ellinger. He's not running a lot. They give it to him in every 3rd and 2. It's like quarterback power. Here it comes. And then obviously Marcel Reed. I think probably a lot of people saw what he did on Saturday night. So the fact that Texas is not only not vulnerable to this, but proficient in defending the style bodes extremely well for the back half of the season.
We want to give you, Richard McClellan here wants to give you some cookies, Justin. So Justin's been talking about Jelani for a while, 2 years from what I remember, and Justin was dead on. McDonald is a monster. That dude has mega high ceiling and NFL bound. Talk to us about Jelani for those that maybe just haven't been paying much attention, Justin.
Okay, yeah, he's a sophomore out of Waco Connolly. We've actually got some stories going up tomorrow about the Waco Connolly cadets and the Texas contingent that comes from that town and from that school. Love that staff. They have so many good coaches there. We started going there, 3 or 4 years ago to check in on Trey Wisner when he was a sophomore running back. And that led me to Jelani McDonald, which led me to Kobe Black, which led me to Jamarian Vincent, this 2026 athlete 4-star that Texas is in a great shot for right now. That'll play DB. Jelani did everything really well. He was all-state football. He was all-state basketball, and he won gold at the state track meet. So this wasn't something, Richard, I appreciate the love, but this wasn't something that Justin discovered. This guy was a dude from the start. Now, he did kind of bloom late. Oklahoma State, he committed early to Oklahoma State. And so I think people just kind of started ignoring him a little bit. And plus, he played quarterback in high school really well, but he was always going to project to probably outside linebacker or DB at the back. Eric had always talked about he thought he was a linebacker. I said, no. Hey, he's a safety. Go watch him play basketball. Go watch him do long jump. That's a safety. And I think that's where he's at now. And when Makuba goes down and Derek Williams, the Raptor, goes down, the next man up. That's where they're at right now. Jelani McDonald can make up for stuff he may be missing with athleticism and with kind of a knack. He just sort of he's an aggressive kid. He's learning. This is the best way to get his experience right now that I think is going to really benefit Texas next year and the year after next. But unbelievable kid. Dad played college ball at TCU. Again, one of the best basketball players I've covered doing any of this. Just he was great at everything. And on top of that, he was an incredible kid. He was so cool to be around. Flipped to Texas as soon as they offered, and the rest is history.
We've been doing, I think, a really good job of maintaining a high level of positivity because we can with this defense. I want to switch over to the offense here because that is obviously a major point in the comment section here. But before we do that, I want to hear from one of our sponsors.
This video is brought to you by Luxe Kitchen and Bath. Luxe has been offering high-end kitchen and bathroom remodels for 3 generations throughout the greater Austin area. With 5-star review after 5-star review on Google and Facebook, and an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau, you can put your faith in Luxe Kitchen and Bath's award-winning designers and skilled craftspeople to bring to life that dream vision of your special home. But that's not all. Luxe's all-star team provides full remodels, large additions, and even commercial build-outs as well. So call Luxe Kitchen and Bath at 833-358-LUXE today. Or visit luxekitchenbath.com to discover where quality meets luxury and begin the process of transforming your home. Get a free quote today by calling 833-358-LUXE. That's LUXE. Or by visiting luxekitchenbath.com. Link in the description.
I want to keep it a little bit positive here, Ian, and this is something that Our friend Eric has been saying all the time, putting trust in Sark. UT Parking is saying, I applaud Sark for doing right by Quinn and trying to put Quinn in position to regain confidence and lead the team. But Quinn isn't good enough. I'd love to be wrong. Now, one thing I'd like to point out here is after that interception, Homeboy went 17 for 17 straight out the gate. And I do think that he does recover really well here, but these are some consistent problems and some things we might need to look at. So, Ian, what is your take on this? Where are we with? I think it's safe to say that Quinn is our horse running forward. But what are your thoughts here?
I think this is actually a really complicated problem.
Yes.
I think the 17 completions are not a mirage. Like, that's not easy to do. But it's not like, they were all mostly perimeter
plays.
They're all perimeter screens, right? He had a couple other throws too. He had a few encouraging throws in the game overall.
Yeah.
But mostly it was just more of the perimeter screens and swing passes, and Vanderbilt couldn't defend them, whereas Georgia could. So any Texas fan that went into this game saying, hey, look at Ewer's average depth of target and look at all these swing passes, that's all we can do, and they wanted to see something different from Vanderbilt, they didn't get much different, right? I made a meme a while ago in response to a video James shot, right, James?
Yeah.
There's like this UT frat guy who was saying it's got to be Arch. Arch throws bombs. He just throws bombs. And so I made the midwit meme, LC, the bell curve meme.
Yes.
I put, in the middle was, there's more to quarterback play than just pure passing. There's intangibles, there's game management, and then on the ends of the bell curve are Arch throws bombs.
Right.
That I was discussing this with a friend of mine earlier today. Yeah, that didn't quite show up, but there's another bell curve that he was mentioning, which is the 10% of plays that Texas calls that go really well. Who do you want at the helm when everything went exactly like Sark drew it up?
Sure.
Do you want Arch or you want Quinn throwing that ball? And then on the other end, those other 10% of plays where things go bad and the quarterback's got to make something happen. Who do you want with the ball in those instances, Arch or Quinn? And so I'm Mr. Game Manager, wins you college football games. But those ends of the bell curve, and I'm not totally sure if Arch is better when plays break down than Quinn, even though he can run and Quinn doesn't. But I think it's extremely complicated.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure that Quinn is better. I don't know if he will be better this season. I think the more plays Arch gets, the more the chances are that Arch is better. But I also think it's extremely risky to throw a high upside veteran to the curb in the middle of a season before you have to.
I'm sorry, I need to interrupt you there, but we know that works. If you want to, you simply look at Oklahoma. I think if you just run through whatever quarterback you can, regardless of the situation, and it's going to turn out great.
There is that counterexample. Yeah.
Hey, OU covered this weekend.
Yeah.
This is great. They did. I legit thought I wanted our friends from the North to win that game, but
I think Ian's right about Quinn. I think it's it's a lot more complicated than that. And it seems simple because he is a little touchy now. He is a little hesitant. He does play with maybe a little, I wouldn't say fear, but it's in the back of his head. And with Arch doesn't have that type of mentality. He doesn't, I don't think he's allowed to let that be digested. Like that's kind of where I see the 10%. I'd rather in Arch's hands because he is the improv. I love the touchdown pass to Silas Bolton in his first. I think that was his first game. Like that was incredible. That was just improv, the way it happened, and that's Archie. That's the coolest thing. But I think the thing you want Quinn to throw the ball down the field because the ADOT is a joke. Run the dang ball. Until Texas decides, Sark made a comment today, the DBs are playing off. Tell them to scoot up. You don't tell them to scoot up. You make them scoot up. That was one of the worst answers I've heard from Sark since we've done this. And to me, it all goes together. It's almost like he's enabling Quinn in a sense, because they know if they're going to win big this year, Quinn's probably going to have to be the guy. But at the same time, you got to look at the other side of it. You got to look at playing complementary football and not letting your defense get on the field. It is a very complex problem. And I think running the football would change so much of it.
So, James, I'm going to put this over to you. And this is obviously for the group here, but how much improvement can be made over a bye week? I know I threw this question to Drew and Coach a couple weeks ago when it came up, but we do, as you pointed out, Ian, have a schedule coming up with heavy runs, and we've demonstrated that we're able to mitigate that. But James, I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on what do you want to see coming out of this bye week?
Yeah, I mean, running the ball would be key, and I would like to see a little more of Quinn moving up in the pocket. We saw it on that 3rd and long at the end to ice the game. It does seem like maybe he is a little softer. I mean, you guys were working last season, watching the team closely, obviously. I feel like he never takes off now. I know he's not a running guy. He's not as athletic as Arch. But, I remember because I was in the stands, that run against Baylor. And I was watching the Georgia game, and there was a couple times where I'm like, he could have stepped up and gotten 6 to 8 yards. So I would definitely like to see running the ball and then just Quinn getting more into the old form that we saw last year. Like the fans, obviously, we sometimes have amnesia and there's recency bias, but we forget this is still the guy who threw that great deep ball last year in Tuscaloosa. This is the guy who played the best game of his life probably in Tuscaloosa, led us to the college football playoff, won the Big 12 for the first time since 2009. Like I'm still on the boat that I believe Quinn is the guy, and I think Sark knows that to an extent. Probably, should coddle him a little less. But I do think we will see more emphasis on running the ball and hopefully opening up the playbook. Like Quinn is a 3rd-year starter. Everybody's talking about the ADOT stat, the average distance of target. I think we did see a little bit more deep balls. The throw to DeAndre Moore was great. But, yeah, I just think this team obviously has it. And it's just right now they're kind of in their own way. And Quinn's kind of in his own way, in my opinion. I would think he seems a little rattled, maybe more than he leads on, in my opinion.
We haven't even mentioned the offensive line yet.
Yep, there's the segue.
And so, buddy, that's probably the crux.
Let me just say, you do wonder what happens when Quinn gets 2 weeks off and Sark can reconfigure the offense a little bit. When he came back from injury last year, he didn't really look like Quinn until the Big 12 championship game.
All right.
And there's got to be so much weighing on his mind, right? This is supposed to be his draft year, and he's worried about not showing the NFL injury concerns that'll tank his draft status,
sure,
and also not getting injured again and confirming them. So I think he's got a lot going on up here, and
yeah, I think that's something people forget is like, if you guys think I'm young next to my co-host here, I'm a couple years older.
Whoa! We are the same age.
But Quinn's a couple years younger than me, so imagine how immature the comments probably think someone like me is. Look, he's a young kid, right? And this is his 3rd year starting, but like Ian's saying, this is supposed to be the year. It started out looking like that, like, oh, Quinn's the best quarterback in the country, right? That's what I thought, honestly, the way he was commanding the line of scrimmage against Michigan, pocket presence, everything like that. And then a testament to that is the injuries. He's never really gotten to get a rhythm in his 3rd year starting because he'll play 4 games, then he's hurt for 2 games. So it's really it's been kind of an unfortunate timing for the kid, and he's only 21 years old. I think sometimes people are so hard, but he's 21. The guy was born in 2003. He's a young kid. But yeah, it's just getting banged up, and I think now it's like you have Arch right behind you. It's to pretend that doesn't affect the kid's psyche is ludicrous. I think it does get to him as much as they are buddies, and just the constant pressure in the fans and comment sections and stuff like that. And the O-line not helping him out, that to just
let's talk about that O-line, because I think this is one of the more seasoned offensive lines we've had in a long, long time. And I think going into this season, it was certainly viewed as a strength.
Yes.
We have had the last 2 weeks now, some SEC defensive line. And guess what? Those are scholarship players too that we're playing against. So the thing I'm curious about here, Ian, is offensive line. We're halfway through the season, as Sark likes to point out. What are you seeing? What's your grade?
Give us your grade before the last 2 games, then the grade total.
I really don't know. I don't feel like I've put really good eyes on them the last 2 weeks. I know I watched all the sacks against Georgia, rewatched those when Joe wrote an article about it. I've been looking at other things a lot of times. I noticed live that against Vanderbilt, there were like 2 blitzes that felt like the guy that got to Quinn was not someone that was on the offensive line. Just like that corner blitz that stripped him against Georgia. Yeah. There was one very obvious one where Cam Williams got worked and the guy was into Quinn in a minute that you wouldn't blame on anyone except Cam Williams. But, that happens sometimes. If that was a one-off, you wouldn't say like the O-line sucks, Cam Williams sucks. But because it happened to a team that's given up like 13 sacks in 2 games or something like that, then you're like, the line sucks. But it's not clear to me how much of this is an O-line issue. Like, we know that there were some times when Quinn didn't step up. That was better against Vanderbilt.
Sure.
There are times when the running backs are not hitting the right guys. That seems very clear on a couple plays. And Georgia also was teeing off against the team that was trying to erase a huge deficit with NFL pass rushers.
They were teeing off on a quarterback that got stuck like a deer in the headlights. We weren't expecting Quinn to come in that mountain and with that much fear. We haven't seen that since 2022.
Yeah.
The run game is what I want to look at.
Close friend that was down there and told us in 2022, what was it right before his first start? Homeboy's got deer in the headlights look right now. And he was exactly right. Then he came back the next year or the second year when they beat Alabama, and right before the game, he texted us both and said, Quinn's dialed in. He's different now. It's Jekyll and Hyde, man. And I think without a running game and the O-line doing crazy stuff and absorbing penalties at a very high rate, it's so complex. That's what 2 weeks of a bye is going to help these guys with. The defense knows what they can do, and they know what they're good at, and they're going to get healthier with Makuba coming back and guys like that. The offense, they got work to do, guys.
The run game definitely was obvious. It was too obvious against Georgia, and they had some guys get whooped at the point of attack by Georgia's players.
Which is going to happen. That is going to happen.
That should not happen if this line is going to be what we thought it was, though, to the extent that it did.
But I think maybe the SEC thing, you know what I'm saying? Texas was great on penalties before they got into SEC play. Maybe there's an adjustment that goes with playing the offensive line in the SEC, because I'm one of those guys, some of these holds aren't legit. You don't want to argue each individual one. The Kelvin Banks one, not a hold. The PI on Malik Muhammad, not a PI. Like, those were critical, and I think some of that is just maybe they're trying to adjust.
The timing of the holding penalties against Texas in the second half against Vanderbilt was, if you were an official and wanted to keep the point spread from getting to where it was projected to be, then finding holding penalties, when and where they found holding penalties, would be a fantastic way to keep a point spread from going away from you.
And I think the key
this would have been a 3-touchdown game if it wasn't for that penalty in the second quarter. 3-touchdown game, and Texas maybe separates big. You don't know.
Sure.
But Ian said those calls were very timely.
Very timely.
Yeah, and again, I mean, what we're saying here is this is purely hypothetical. We're just posticulating, like just throwing out into the universe here what could be if that were the situation. We're certainly not suggesting that it is, as your lawyer. So we should take a quick moment right now before we get ourselves into too much trouble with
DraftKings.
I don't know actually how we get in trouble.
I was just throwing the Prize Picks ad right now.
Let's talk about somebody that that has a fiduciary responsibility.
I'm just gonna say, guys, you probably need a fiduciary financial advisor, and I've got the guy for you. His name is David McClellan with Forum Financial. He works broadly and deeply with his clients as a financial life coach, and he should know something about coaching because he won several national championships as a swimmer for the University of Texas. He specializes in financial planning and has contributed numerous articles to Kipling on the topic of retirement tax bombs. So contact David today to be your fiduciary financial planner and schedule a 1-hour consultation to assess your financial situations. The free consultation is available, so just give him a call. The number is 312-933-8823. That's 312-933-8823. His email is also in the description below.
Halfway through the season, as we've said this many times, this is a new era for all of college football. We are playing a different game. I mean, let's face it. A couple years ago, a one loss and you're done. Your season's over. You might as well not really worry too much about how the rest of the year is going to go. Hopefully, you may play for a conference championship, but that is not the case anymore. One of the things that Sark talked a lot about, I don't want to say a lot, but certainly during the press conference, was the need for longevity, getting things in there. One thing that I thought was really interesting was the fact that we held out IB. Isaiah Bond did not play this game. He looked at the idea of giving him 3 weeks rest as opposed to 2 as an opportunity to build things up. And that leads me to believe, and I'll throw this to you, Justin, that Sark is certainly someone that is thinking the long game. And I'm wondering if that, in your mind, or rather how that would play out in your mind. How is he playing the long game?
You talking about from it being halfway into the season?
Yeah, I'm talking about management. I'm talking about play calling. I mean, because
you got to. It's not load management like we see in the pros a lot of times, especially in the NBA. It's not that, but I do think they have guys that are dinged up. There are a few guys I think that were hurt this year that probably could have played in a pinch. But because of the long season, because of the depth, it wasn't necessary. I think Sark felt very comfortable going to Vanderbilt with Ryan Wingo as your starting outside guy, and
right.
it proved it, in so many ways. And so he's handling it like he's a general manager. He's handling it like he's a professional. You've got to weigh that out because they want to get in the playoff. They want to be playing in mid to late January, and to do that, you're going to have all your bullets. Quinn Ewers going to have to be sharp. And like Ian said last year, it took him about 3 or 4 weeks before he actually got back in stride. We've seen him in stride. If the running game comes up, if the O-line, fixes little things, I don't think there's one major problem. It's just a bunch of loose screws across the board. Sark's is tinkering. Sark's doing that. And the fact that he's getting Jelani McDonald so much playing time, Kobe Black is starting to get more playing time. Jalen Gilbo had one bust early on contain with Pavia. That didn't happen again. He actually played it really well the rest of the game. That was a good little adjustment there. It's all about being a general manager, in my opinion. It's all about the personalities in the locker room because not everybody's always happy. This team's 7-1, and I guarantee you there's some people that aren't happy. And because it's Austin, it's Texas football. That one loss means everything. But like you said, this isn't the BCS era anymore. This is the AP's not deciding the Natty. There's a playoff. There's a tournament. And Texas has to get to that tournament. They've got the guys on this roster to do it. Take their time, get that extra bye. I just think it's load management, but not at an NBA type level.
Are you seeing anything different, Ian?
Difference in what?
Well, I would say, one of the things I would be curious about is because, he referred to talking to, Andy Reid, Belichick, Sean McVay. Those guys have experience playing 16, 19 games in a season. And I do know that there is a mental load that comes with all of that. And I wonder sometimes, certainly toward the beginning of the season when we had opponents that we could run through the roster a little bit more on, I imagine that there was a lot of foundational play calling that was going on there to start to build things up. And I'm wondering, do you see any differences as we move later into the season between something that was happening this year and something that was happening last year?
I definitely don't think Georgia got Texas's best shot. That was a pretty obvious one.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's playoff versus we have to absolutely boat race Oklahoma this year. We can't cheat anything for Georgia. We need to be at our zenith for Oklahoma week and then trying to replicate that the following week. is
Can
tough.
you expand on that? Because that's something that's come up in the comments quite a bit, especially from those folks that joined us from Georgia. That why would beating Oklahoma be so important, almost to the point of not focusing on Georgia during that week as well?
Well, you could just flip it around. How come Georgia looked so much better against Texas than they did in other games this season? Why was it that Georgia had saved up guys to get healthy in time for Texas?
Right.
It's because they absolutely had to win that game to keep their playoff hopes alive.
Exactly.
It wasn't because they needed to beat Texas because of a rivalry or something. It was just that Texas happened to be the game that was like a must-win for Georgia in their playoff.
You can tell by Kirby, by the way
They had to have it, and they played like it, and they obviously focused and prepared like it. Texas didn't have to beat Georgia. If they'd lost to Oklahoma again, not only playoffs, but your whole program is in a bad place if you found a way to lose that game, right?
Especially
I would have been, face down in the in-laws pool. I think they found a way to lose that game.
Well, I think this is exactly what I'm talking about is making those types of decisions mid-season. Now, obviously, look,
they made that
decision. You want to win every game, but we do. I mean, there's only so many hours in the week, and priorities have to be made.
Yeah, you can't. There's a different level of preparation that goes into a postseason game and a championship game and a must-win game. And you just can't maintain that intensity year round. You just can't. And like the Andy Reids and the Bill Belichick's, they are very demanding, but it's not the same. They don't throw the ball at Travis Kelce 15 times every week. Only when they have to. So that is different, but that might have been the case regardless of playoffs. Just because of the way the schedule fell out. We'll see if that manifests in other schedules.
I think that's what makes Nick Saban, one of the reasons it makes Nick Saban so good is he was able to find an edge every week or almost every week with his guys, good or bad opponent, on the road, at home. I think that's where you see the great ones separate from the all-time great head coaches are the ones, not just good recruiters, not good play callers, not just great relationship builders, good managers, good guys that Jimmy Johnson, probably the best mental evaluator in professional sports history. Like these guys, they figured out little, ways to do this. And so that's what Nick Saban, that's what makes him so great. He kept these guys with an edge for 6 months. That's why he's at a workplace for 2 weeks.
He also just eliminated all the margin. Because he's like, we're going to have a 5-star at every freaking position on the football team.
But they didn't have that at first. He didn't have that at Michigan State at first. He didn't have that at LSU at first. And he
didn't win every week.
It made it easier. I get you. But keeping the edge, that's talent or no talent. That's a psychological thing.
He maintained
a personality trait of who you're recruiting.
He demanded a standard of everyone in the organization that you just don't get from most people. Don't have that drive to be a tyrant 24/7 like Saban. It's unreal.
Yeah, I just recently watched that video. If you remember a few years back when Saban called a timeout up like 50-3 against, I think, New Mexico State, but it was showing him mic'd up and just how PO'd he got at them having guys misaligned, 12 on the field. There's 10 seconds left. New Mexico State's in the goal or in the red zone. And he calls a timeout and people thought it was like controversial or whatever. He's like, well, if I let that slide, eventually he knows that little play as a microcosm doesn't mean crap, right?
Yep.
But he knows, that might bite us in the back when I'm playing LSU in 2 weeks or whatever it may be. And I think a lot of people forget, Sark, while you've heard his name for years, like he's relatively new to being the guy. He's only had one 10-win season. He took a few years off from being the man in the chair, but he's been on staffs as far back as Pete Carroll and, of course, Saban and NFL, as we were just talking about with load management and stuff like that. Like he's learned how to manage, but he's still relatively new and he's young in terms of his coaching career. He'll be doing this for probably 20 more years. So I think we'll see him get his rhythm and his understanding of instilling fully those Saban values of like process over outcome. And I think you're definitely starting to see that's the main switch between previous regimes and Sark now, when I got to go to practice and notice that difference, and that it's starting to become a process oriented program, and you're getting the right guy who's, you know, everybody's battling with each other in practice, that when the third stringer gets in, there's not as much of a drop off from the second string, and vice versa with the first string. So I think Texas is definitely getting there, but we're new to being quote unquote here, you know, at the winner's table. So I think it will get better as the years go on.
James, I'm wondering, you know, as you're new to this, if you could just maybe tell us, like, what's one memory that you really have from Texas? Like, what's the one thing that you remember most of all being a Texas fan?
Yeah, I mean, you guys aren't gonna like it, but the first one was Crabtree.